Perceived Pressure tells stories in the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. We recognise that their sovereignty has never been ceded. We recognise that First Nations Australians were the original storytellers of this land and acknowledge the profound and ongoing contributions of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to our collective sporting fabric. Cambridge McCormick, welcome to Perceived Pressure. How are you feeling?
Yeah, pretty good. A bit nervous, but that's fun.
That's fun. It's always everybody's first proper podcast.
First proper podcast, yeah, for sure.
It's always a nerve-wracking thing. It's nerve-wracking for me as well because I have to come and sit down. We set up in your house here in Sydney, and I have to come and sit down and try to make someone comfortable in their home, and
But with
immediately
cameras, yeah.
Exactly. Immediately you're not comfortable because there's cameras around.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I'm sure we'll be fine. How are you feeling in the off season? How's your off season going?
It's going pretty well. I think it's really enjoyed getting away from Sydney for a little bit and coming back feeling like a lot more refreshed. But we're pretty much straight back into it. Like we're pretty much training at a pre-season level, but we're in the optional period and we officially start May 11th. So we've been working pretty hard. So a bit exhausted, but it's going well.
Excellent. I guess you're coming off the back of a bit of a breakout year. You've had a great year and All-Australian. And how do you set up again? Did you change anything coming into the back end of last year that you go, okay, well, now I'm going to do the exact same thing again? Are you superstitious?
Not necessarily. I think there's some things like I remember I wore a ribbon in my hair one game and that's when I got injured like 2 seasons ago. So that's sort of been banned since then. But apart from that, you have like your little routines that you have like pre-game. Like I always have to do a certain number of handballs with one of my teammates. But apart from that, I feel like in the grand scheme of things.
I need to get my numbers.
Yeah.
And it has to be with a specific teammate?
Yeah, normally. Just because we play a similar position, like at different ends of the fields. But whereas like one of our other teammates, she has to wear the same socks every game, so that's a bit different.
What's the weirdest superstition you've had to deal with?
Probably the socks. I think that's like she's been wearing the same socks for years, so they're getting a bit.
And so you can, because I guess they're always orange or whatever. So you're like,
hers like wearing like smaller socks within her socks. So
and those have to be the same.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Which is pretty mental. But yeah, I feel like we're not too superstitious. I think there's things that you latch onto. Like I remember when I had to play ruck back in my first season, I had a better game and I'd eaten a bacon and egg roll from like the markets in Potts Point beforehand, and I was like, I'm going to have to go there every single week. Obviously I didn't, but...
Did you keep it up for at least one game?
Yeah, it didn't help. Didn't help at all.
It doesn't. I remember reading about like sports psychs that talk about like replicating conditions. And I think it was Mike Hussey wrote about this in his book. Again, like one of these things when he was coming up and he was younger and he was trying to figure out how you replicate those conditions that you play well in. And so this sports psych was like, hey, and this is early doors, right? Like this is early 2000s. He's like, okay, what you had for breakfast, we're gonna lock in what you had for lunch, what you had the night before. We're gonna lock in. It's all gonna be the same.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, sweet. That works for Mr. Cricket. That's gonna work for me.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
If it works in like, Australian grade, then of course it's going to work for like Div 3.
Exactly right. So let's start from the start. We'll start from the start with you, because I guess this happens a lot with GWS and like Sydney footy in general, and I'm conscious that it's sort of been under the microscope lately, which we can get to. But you're not from footy country, right? Put very simply.
Yeah.
So I guess walk me through how you ended up playing footy. Because you're a Queenslander.
Yes. Yeah, well, I'm a Queenslander, but my dad's Victorian and my mum spent most of her life growing up in Victoria. So we were always bound to play AFL. But yeah, middle of like Sunshine Coast is sort of like rugby league territory. It's probably like a little bit more AFL these days. But yeah, definitely grew up and was always bound to do Auskick. And when my older brother did Auskick, of course I wanted to. And I sort of followed his footsteps all the way through juniors.
So you're the younger of two?
Younger of 3, I've got an older sister as well. Yep. She wasn't super keen on AFL or Aussie rules when she was younger, but when I stopped at under 12s because we all had to at that stage, which is pretty crazy because it wasn't that long ago that girls couldn't play after under 12s.
No, it's like I was talking about this like, again, even at like grassroots level, like the difference between, say, well, actually, no, like we were talking about this with Izzy Huntington, a friend of the pod, right? And you go, okay, well, we're roughly the same age, all about 27, 28.
Yeah.
And she was the number one draft pick back then. And you look at the number one draft pick around, you look at her and the high draft picks around her era, and then you look at the number one draft picks now, and there's another world of, okay, these are girls that don't know a world where there isn't just an equivalent pathway set up, right?
It's actually quite funny because it's we have spoken about this a few and I only came into AFLW in second half of 2022, so I wasn't even there from the start when, you know, the girls were earning $4,000 or $5,000 to play. But like the fact that girls now just have like no recollection because they weren't around when we had to stop playing, and there was like, and even before me, where there was like no pathway whatsoever. So it's just changed so much, and it's probably a good thing that they don't realise that that's something that happened. But it's probably also something that's important for us to hold on to, so we keep fighting for women and girls having the same access to the same pathways as boys do.
Do you find that, like, this is maybe a bad way of phrasing it, but do you find that it almost grates a little bit with these younger girls of, like, you know, back in our day, back in your day, I should say, it was like, it was very different. And nowadays they have different advantages, or they're coming to the game in a different way. Do you find, do you witness, I guess, almost a resentment?
Not necessarily.
From a competitive perspective?
Yeah, I wouldn't say necessarily a resentment, but I think you're pretty aware of it. Like, I'm definitely aware of the fact that the girls coming in these days and the players that are getting drafted are significantly better than what I was like when I was drafted, even though I was drafted as like 22, 23-year-old. So it's quite eye-opening. But I think it keeps you on your toes, though, at the same time, which is probably something that like is good. Like, you even hear some of the men's champions, like, they talk about how seeing like the kids coming through these days is so much better, and it makes you realise that you have to keep developing your game. But it's things that as a senior player you sort of hold on to, like your knowledge of the game, your game plan, like leadership, that sort of stuff that you get to rely on a bit more. But they keep you, definitely the younger girls, they keep you making sure that you're pushing yourself to get better, because you can't be complacent when there's so much talent coming through.
No, exactly right. I guess coming back to this drafting point, so Auskick out of Queensland. Yeah. Stopped playing at 12?
Yeah, and then I got to do a little bit of youth girls on the sunny coast, because that was sort of the first comp that started up, because it was like my dad and a bunch of other dads wanted their girls to keep being able to play, so they started a youth girls league. So I did that for a little bit, but then stopped, focused on basketball basically through until I moved back down to Port Macquarie for uni.
Okay, and so down to Port Macquarie for uni, playing there, you helped start a senior women's league there, is that right?
Well, I guess...
am I overstating that?
Contributed, I would say. It was definitely probably a vision of the league down there. They hadn't had a women's league, and they wanted to start one because they knew how much it was taking off across, you know, the rest of New South Wales. But North Coast, that's covering the territory. I think now they push all the way up to Ballina, Byron, all the way down towards Port Macquarie. So that is rugby league heartland. Yeah. Like, it's a really competitive market to try to get people to play a different sport. But yeah, when I first moved down there, I just trained with the men's team. So the Port Macquarie Magpies, I'd just go along, train with them. And then when I'd go back to Queensland for holidays, I'd play with the team up there. And then in my second year down there, worked with the AFL, North Coast to try to rally up some interest. And we got a team up, which is pretty cool. So yeah, it helped contribute to starting the Port Macquarie team.
I remember my first journo job was up in Yamba.
Oh, yes.
And it was, exactly right, like aggressively rugby league
Aggressively, yeah.
And I remember thinking like, oh, this is like, and you don't realise that it's like rugby league heritage either until I think it was Sam Burgess was coaching like Aurora Valley or something, and at the time. And I thought, okay, sweet, awesome. I'm a local reporter. They promised me that local stories are mine. And then I won't name and shame them, but, you know, Fox Sports reporters would come up and snake your stories, and you'd be like, hey, hang on a second. I thought this was my local story.
This is my territory.
And they go, no, this is rugby league heritage.
Yeah.
You you wait your turn.
Yeah, but it's like that area where you have to go hunting to find AFL or Aussie rules posts. Like when you drive around Port Macquarie, there's multiple fields and they're all rugby league or rugby union, I suppose. But then you really have to really Google where can I find this cricket field that potentially has footy posts. So yeah, it's definitely really strong rugby league territory, which is interesting because we probably poached a few people from like rugby sevens and rugby league, some women's players to come over and play AFL. So yeah, it was tricky, but it was good.
Is that a thing that you sort of, I guess, see replicated in? This is what I'm really interested in is like, and I guess I'm skipping a few steps here, but in terms of the challenges of, okay, you got to pinch someone that comes from rugby sevens, rugby league, rugby union, pinching people from basketball, people from soccer, to try and make it viable as a code on the North Coast. And you sort of see that in Sydney as well a little bit, and you see that, I presume you saw that in Queensland early doors. Is that, I guess, are there similarities there? Where is it, because you mentioned that Sunny Coast is now almost more AFL, more Aussie rules than rugby league or rugby codes, which is mind-boggling to me. As like a closeted, sheltered Victorian. Mind-boggling to me that there's a place north of the Barassi line where it has legitimate prominence. Are there different challenges there?
Yeah, well, I think like Queensland in particular, like the Sunny Coast area, it's because there's so many Victorians that are moving up there. Like you can't deny that Melburnians love to move to the Sunshine Coast or Gold Coast. So I think that's people bringing their family culture of playing Aussie rules and supporting Aussie rules, and that's shifting them to a different location. So like even I think about playing at Port, I think a lot of the people that were like locals to the area had actually moved from Victoria or southern New South Wales and had grown up playing Aussie rules. So like for me, I grew up in, what you probably find is like rugby league and soccer territory. But in my family, Aussie rules was always the sport to play.
Yeah. It was never a question.
Yeah, and I can count on my like one hand how many rugby league games I've ever gone to watch. And being a Queenslander, like that's pretty shameful. But like I hardly get into the state of origin. I only do it to annoy my New South Wales friends. But I think it's just like the challenge is that if you're putting AFL or Aussie rules into a area that is predominantly people have grown up supporting rugby league or rugby union, it's going to always be challenging.
I found when I moved to, and does that change now? Do you support the Blues? Yeah.
In
Origin.
Oh God, no.
Month's time.
No, I have a Maroons jersey tucked away in my closet just in case. You never know when you have to whip it out.
When people ask the question.
Yeah. So no, it's good. I mean, it was good when they were winning, 8 in a row, whatever it was. But,
yeah, exactly. There's heritage. Yeah. For like our childhood as well.
Yeah.
And like Victorians go for Queensland.
Yeah, but no, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely a Queenslander, but it's always funny because people get so confused where I actually grew up. So it's always funny because when I say like, all right.
Oh, this was a process.
Yeah. I'm like, no, I'm a Queenslander. It gets confusing, but no, definitely back them in.
And then you end up down in Canberra, and this is where, I guess, walk me through this draft process where you stop playing footy you start playing footy sort of in a youth girls comp on the North Coast, finish uni there, and then down to Canberra.
Yeah.
So at what point is footy a conversation of I could make a career out of this, or I want to pursue this at an elite level, or is it like you fall into it?
Yeah, I think so. Before I moved to Port Mac for uni, I was a train-on with the Lions in their first year, which is so funny because I look back on it now and I don't think I really understood like how cool it was to actually be a part of it. Like, because we were train-on, so you don't have the access to the facilities or the coaching or anything. Like, you're just there to make up numbers. But I realised now that I probably could have stayed and really chased the path of being drafted. I definitely had the height and probably the athleticism. It was quite raw still.
Because you were quite tall quite early and that developed early for you.
Yeah, but I just decided that it was more important to me to become a physio, and I think that was probably more realistic at that stage. When I moved to Canberra, I was literally just playing for fun. I was playing for Eastlake and just in the local comp. And when I had no intention of ever chasing the dream of playing AFLW. Like by that stage I was like, no, I'm done with like my footy is just for fun.
Serious footy is
done. I'm just here to have friends and like to keep fit and to keep playing the sport that I love. And then it wasn't until I literally got a phone call out of the blue from the Giants head coach, which is Cam Bernasconi, asking me if I'd be interested in meeting with them because they're thinking about drafting me. And I could not believe it. It was genuinely out of the blue.
Yeah. Shit, there you go.
So it turns out he actually came and watched a game against where we played against Tuggeranong, and he tells a story to me about how he walked onto the field because, you know, community footy, like the supporters can walk in and like you can stand around the when you're getting like a spray from the coach. And he's walked on the field and stood next to me and sized me up and made sure that I was tall enough that I'd actually be a good ruckman because I was drafted as a ruck. So it's so funny because I'm like, I had no idea that any of that was going on. And it wasn't until I received the phone call that I spoke to my community coach and he said, oh, yeah, I knew that they were coming to watch you play that day, but I didn't want to tell you because it'd probably freak you out. And I was like, wow. So it's crazy that literally getting scouted out of, with no like in my head, no interest or no belief that I could play W and then to get scouted just playing local footy. So it was pretty cool.
Was there, I guess there's a almost, I hesitate to use the phrase, but given that we've had this conversation about new draftees now, I'm going to. Is there a difference in terms of coming to the league as sort of a quote-unquote mature age draftee? And sort of the adjustment from local footy, or I feel like local footy is almost derogatory when it's like this is first grade. Canberra's a good standard. Especially like I think it is maybe underrated how strong women's footy particularly is sort of in non-traditional states. Like they talk about Gather Round being in Sydney or planning for Gather Round or rumours of Gather Round being in Sydney. And it would be perfect, I think. But and we can get into that later. But is there a challenge in coming in not out of pathways, essentially?
Yeah, it's pretty funny because like I was even talking to one of our younger girls about the draft crop that I was drafted in, and me as 22, 23-year-old, but like Zali Goldsworthy, who's obviously a weapon. Like you've got Maddie Brassendale, Flo Davies, who's a ruck at the Giants. But getting drafted with those girls who were 18, or like I think Zali was 17 turning 18 or something crazy. And then me coming in, someone who's got a career, has lived away from home for a really long time. It was just so interesting coming into the club that way. But I think at the same time, my football knowledge was quite low. Like I talk about, you know, when you talk about A1, D1, A2, D2, which is something that probably like first grade clubs probably do a bit more of. But me walking into the Giants, I had absolutely no idea what we were talking about. And I'm sitting in our first like training meeting and they're talking about like D1 craft and tackle tech and stuff. And I was like, what have I gotten myself into?
What have I done?
And then the first training session, I remember we had to do like an off-legs conditioning afterwards. And I remember like planking on the AstroTurf and just thinking like, God, I don't know if I'm cut out for this.
That's when you like really have an existential moment.
Yeah, literally. So, but then I think the good thing is that when I first came here, I was working, picked up a job at one of the local hospitals as a physio, and it just gave me the balance that probably the younger girls didn't get the opportunity to have because they were looking at like doing uni and doing study, but it's pretty different to be able to like step into your career and then be able to step away and use both of those to get away from each other. So when footy was really tough, like enjoying my physio work, or when things were tricky in that instance, like being able to challenge yourself and push yourself with footy, it just like set me up, I think, quite well.
I think there's probably an element there as well of you've already been in the workforce, and for a lot of these girls, this is their first job now.
Yeah,
which is wild to me.
I know.
Because, you know, normal people go and have a first job, and it's, you know, what was my first job? It was a Top Shop, which I don't think exists anymore, down in Melbourne at Chadstone. But it's like, okay, that's a normal first job for someone working at Macca's or whatever. And these girls are in the workforce for the first time playing football. And so there's the responsibility of, I'm a footballer and I have a footballer's responsibility on me, but also I'm employed to do this.
Yeah.
And there's another standard when you have to do something for a living now.
Yeah. And I think even like the general professionalism that you learn from like having a career and like even like going through a physio degree and like having to go to different workplaces and adapt when you're doing placement and understand how people work or how people give feedback. All that sort of stuff that you learn really translates into the professional environment of football. And so I've been really lucky. Like I wouldn't have changed it. I think if I was drafted as a 17, 18-year-old, I genuinely think I probably would have been in and out of the system pretty quickly. I probably would have been spat out a bit because I obviously developed like athletically probably a little bit later. And yeah, I think having just the baseline knowledge as a physio of all these different things about even like going through like having stress fractures when I was in high school and understanding now how bad that was because I have this like physio knowledge. I'm like, wow, I can actually support myself quite well so that I am resilient when it comes to injuries and the likes.
I wonder how that changes kids in different codes as well. Like I say this a lot where I think I might have said this to you a while ago where like kids coming through cricket especially, that was my first love. Like cricketers that come through, like fast bowlers that come through, obviously they'll get stress fractures at like 14, 15. At 14, 15, you're like made of rubber. Yeah. But you're also, like these kids are putting their bodies through increasingly like just through loads that they haven't ever seen before. And there's a joke that like stress fractures are like a mark of a badge of honor because it's like that means you're bowling fast enough to do that. But it blows my mind that these kids come through the system and it's just normal now. And they have no idea of how to deal with it. And you talk to like, again, kids that like, again, they're children that quite clearly like don't know how to feed themselves. Yeah. And you say, how come you're not playing this week? And you go, well, stress fractures. Yeah. I mean, for me, I was at boarding school, so it was definitely my fault, all in all. But again, overcommitter, love doing so many sports. And I think I was actually having a discussion with one of my friends who's a dietitian and we were talking about her kiddo who's only a year old and we were joking about, so when's he going to specialise in Aussie rules? When's he going to go down the representative pathway? But we were having a genuine conversation about how early specialisation isn't good for kids. And, I don't have any solid evidence for that, but even just like seeing how people probably in my age range, like we never really specialised because there wasn't the opportunity as a female athlete to specialise necessarily. So, but yeah, you see kids these days even working at the kids' hospital. You're seeing kids that are like so hell-bent on being like a professional basketball player at 11 and you're like, gee whiz, like we shouldn't be specialising so early. We should be keeping ourselves open to all different sports with different patterns of movement so that you can bulletproof yourself. How do you convince a kid, I don't know whether this is necessarily the case, but how do you convince a kid that it's beneficial for them athletically as well? Not just from like an injury prevention perspective, but from a hey, you'll be a better player.
Yeah, I guess it's hard because they're always getting they're getting told that they should specialise early. Like you see Instagram accounts that pop up and it's like, I'm going to train every day until I become an AFL player and they're like a 13-year-old. And you're like, what do you mean? So yeah, I guess it's hard. It's probably just making sure that kids find the joy in different sports, and that's probably where like introducing Aussie rules to different populations is always a good thing because they can sort of try different sports and different positions and get to enjoy different things. Yeah.
I guess talk me through, I guess, then if we're talking about different populations, like you've been away sort of in a number of deployments up the coast and sort of done a lot of work in regional New South Wales now. What are the kids like when you're sort of in these communities? Again, like rugby league heritage, but these kids don't have an understanding of they're just running after a ball, really. What is it like dealing with them and the cultures around that?
Yeah, I mean, it's always fun when you get to introduce footy to like different groups of people, and particularly like when I was out in Narrabri, like there was no oval that had Aussie rules posts because they haven't been able to get up an Aussie rules team in a couple of years, which is quite disappointing. But when you get to see like particularly girls who might be good at like Oz tag or soccer and you show them like how to kick a footy or how to handball, they always just find it's so fun and it's so exciting. And I think about when I was a kid, whenever I get to try a new sport, it's so enjoable. Even me as an adult, like I got to try water polo for the first time. So much fun.
How did that go for you?
So good. It's exhausting. I got sin binned because apparently I was a bit too aggressive with
too aggressive?
Yeah, trying to push the ball. My friends didn't really explain how to actually defend properly. They just said you had to push them underwater. So that's what I did. But apparently you just meant to push the ball underwater. But yeah, like I think that's the cool thing about working alongside like the Giants and being a Giants representative, as we are tending to go into places that aren't Aussie rules territory. You're going into, like, Canberra's different because it's pretty strong Aussie rules out there, but when you go to like clubs around Western Sydney, there's kids who are trying the sport for the first time. So it's cool to see them enjoy it and to challenge themselves by learning the new skills.
I guess talking about GWS is a great, very neat segue. Thank you. I guess there's been so much conjecture, literally in the last couple of weeks, as we record, about like what the GWS project, right, and the Greater Western Sydney project, and the viability of expansion clubs. And Gerard Healy comes out and he's written about 97 boys in Western Sydney, 97 boys in under 13 boys in Western Sydney, and 97 boys, and it keeps getting repeated. And then there becomes this news cycle of what a successful expansion club looks like, and we talk about like you say, like on the Sunny Coast, on the Gold Coast, like this really successful project where the Suns are super competitive and they have in both their men's and women's programs, and it they have a gazillion top draft picks that are legitimate. I think 4 All-Australians last year, or something to that effect. What are we missing when we sit here and go in circles about 97 under 13 boys in Western Sydney? What are we missing here?
Yeah, I think it's hard because you obviously, from what the AFL has come out and said, is that Gerard was definitely sort of picking at stats and not necessarily having the full picture. But unfortunately it does stick and people are still harping on about it. I think it's like what we spoke about earlier. Like, I grew up following Aussie rules. Like, I've always followed AFL. So I never had any interest in looking at rugby league or rugby union or soccer. And so that's what Western Sydney might be like. Like, we've got a big population that are in love with a particular sport. That doesn't mean there isn't possibilities for inroads for Aussie rules. Like, we also have, like, Western Sydney is such a massive population of different cultures. So we've got people who have grown up never even seeing AFL before. And, like, if you're not exposed to it, then how are you meant to know? And then so I remember last year we did a signing day at we had multicultural around for the Giants, and this guy came up to us, and he would have been like mid-20s, and he came up to us and said, "This is my second ever AFL game, but I'm in love with it." He said, "I've grown up like supporting cricket. I'm not from Australia, and I'm absolutely in love with this sport." And that's sort of what we need to do, is provide people with the opportunity to see how good Aussie rules can be and see how exciting it can be. But we're making inroads. Like, you even look at like the Giants, how we're building our membership base. Like, we're doing pretty well. We're doing better than the Suns. We're up against like clubs that have 100 years of culture and history. And we were chasing like 40,000 members this year, which would be pretty amazing. So I think people like to cherry pick the negatives and the challenges, but we're not looking at all the benefits and all the great things that we're doing. Like even Haneen Zarika, who's one of our players who's currently on maternity leave. There's now a competition that she goes to every year that's for girls of Western Sydney to come and play Aussie rules. So you're seeing that things are changing, but Gerard Healy isn't going to notice that. He doesn't care that Haneen's running a program like that. So there might only be 97 boys at that time that information was taken. But I think there's no way that we can stop pushing for growth in Western Sydney because it's such a big population.
What do you say? I guess that probably answers the next question of like, what do you say then to the suggestion that, and I'm heading down this weekend, not for it, but I'll end up there, of, okay, well, we're part-time in Canberra, or at least for the men's program for the period of time that they're there. There's this relationship with Canberra, there's this relationship with the Riverina. Why not just, why don't we just fuck it off and go where there's people who love Aussie rules and we can make something of it, and there'll be crowds at Monica and blah, blah, blah. I guess I guess the answer is probably that Western Sydney's so big, but not to preempt it, but what do you make of that suggestion?
Yeah, I think like I love going to Canberra and playing in Canberra, but I would also say like we definitely have a really strong following in Western Sydney, maybe not in numbers, but the passion that we have from the fans. We have some that come to every AFLW game and they are so supportive of us. And that's like sort of where the Giants was born. Like we're not going to, you never know where the team's going to go and how expansion looks like in like 20 years time. Like maybe somewhere like Canberra might actually eventually get their own team, like how Tasmania has gotten. But I think it would be remiss of the AFL to ignore Western Sydney. And we know the Swannies aren't going to go out west. They like to stay in the eastern suburbs. So, we just know that our fans are based out there. And I do think like, obviously, I don't have the stats or the numbers that Gerard Healy has, but
it really does. It does great on people inside the organisation. It does.
Yeah.
It does upset people.
Yeah, because I think like you're saying that's something that a lot of us put, and in particular as a player, genuine blood, sweat, and tears into. Like we're trying our hardest to represent Western Sydney and to be sort of seen to be like battling out there, and that we're not making any inroads, I think is just completely incorrect. And yeah, I think it's grating for everyone because we know how hard we're working. I know how hard our community team works and like how many amazing programs we have and how many opportunities we give to kids in particular to try a different sport. So yeah, I think, we're getting judged pretty harshly. It's only 15 years in, so we've still got plenty of growth.
Is there a sense you get of like whether there's an unfairness to the metrics? People talk about like crowd sizes and so on. Do you get a sense that there's sort of an unfairness in the metrics of like you can't like not necessarily being able to judge the Giants by the same attendance metrics or the same revenue metrics or the same whatever metrics you want to be using, participation metrics? Is there a sense that the traditional markers of success are a little bit unfair when it comes to the market that we're in?
Yeah, I think like if you look at the pure numbers and, like we're chasing 40,000 and you've got Collingwood who's got like over 110,000, like chasing the pure numbers isn't going to be particularly helpful. I'm sure any statistician can tell you that. But like we are seeing growth and we're seeing growth in our membership base and we're seeing growth particularly in like attendances to our games and the like. So I think you just have to I don't understand why the commentators want to keep beating down on something that the AFL and our organisation as the Giants are working hard on. Like, gee whiz, can we not just like support and see what we can do? Because we want to see more people playing Aussie rules. Like by going out and saying that it's not succeeding, like that is only just eating away at what we're trying to achieve. We want Aussie rules as our Australian sport. Like we want it to be a part of our culture across everywhere. So I feel like we just need to probably have a bit more of a considered approach.
Sometimes I wonder whether certain commentators actually enjoy the game.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like you sit there and you go, you see, it's always the social media graphic as well. It's always the one that does the rounds of like, I'm not going to name them. I was going to. I've got the editorial control to be able to name them. I'm not going to.
Don't drag me into anything.
Exactly. I have to answer to too many people at the Giants now.
Yeah.
But, you see like really negative commentary around, like not just the Giants, but whatever football club it might be because it makes the world go around.
Yeah.
It makes the algorithm go around. And you sit there and you go, rugby league loves, every single rugby league commentator is an advocate for the game.
Yeah.
And like, I guess it has to be balanced with like accountability, like journalistic accountability. But like, you talk to Buzz Rothfield and he loves the game. Absolutely loves the game. And he won't hear a bad word about it. You talk to Peter V'landys and he's this and like not that Andrew Gillen isn't, but like you talk to Peter V'landys and he's a salesperson for the game. And he will tell anyone who listens, and even if you're not listening, about how rugby league's the greatest game of all and and how much better they are than the AFL and blah, 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 blah. Because it's his job and that's his livelihood and that's what he loves. And then our biggest names and our biggest commentators so often are like, here's how the AFL's fucked up. Here's how the AFL's gone woke. Here's how the AFL's fucking done this or done that or whatever. And I just wonder whether there's like a fundamental misunderstanding of what journalistic accountability looks like, and I guess what I'm on a tear here, but like, is there a sense you get of there's an us and them mentality with the journalists that are in Sydney and you do interact, or the media circle that you do interact with here in Sydney versus what you get in Victoria?
Yeah, I guess it's hard. I can't really comment on it too much because I am an AFLW player and we in general have a lot less media coverage. So yeah, I find that the people who mostly pump out the information and the articles about AFLW are actually from AFL House. So yeah, it's hard to comment in particular in Sydney. I'm sure the men's players would probably have a bit more experience with the media.
I guess the next thought process, and this is slightly spicy, I promise it won't be too hard, but like, club didn't do too well last year, very bluntly put. But you had a great year.
Yeah.
So, like that's a super blunt way to put it, but I guess the more nuanced question there is like, how do you like reconcile those two things, like in your mind, as like when you're sort of sitting down in sort of November, December, and you're sitting down on the beach and go, okay, I finally have closure on this year, and I'm wrapping, and now I look to next year. How do you reconcile your feelings around like how you went versus how the club's going, or how the club went and how the club's going? Yeah,
I think it's always hard because at the end of the day, like, I play a team sport because I love my teammates. I love succeeding as a team. And you could see, like, when we beat Western Bulldogs last year, it had been a long time between wins, and just like the pure excitement that we all had. And
I was there.
Yeah, jumping all over Bernasconi as well as he came on the field. Like, that's the reason why we play. So when we're on the roller coaster of that in-season schedule, like, all you want is another win. And I think overall, I think my teammates and probably the coaching staff as well were pretty disappointed that we dropped a few games that were like, we should have won a lot more. But, you know, you can only, like, hindsight's 2020. There's always things that you could fix. I definitely didn't think that I would reach, like, I was obviously massively honoured to make the All-Australian team, and my teammates celebrated it. Like, they were just as happy for me as I was proud of my achievements. So that just shows you that sort of connection that we have. And I just hope that, you know, this year we've got some great new recruits in. We're looking to make finals and really push and just show how our game style is really exciting, and we just want to win together.
I promised you that I would move on quickly, and I will. But I guess I want to talk about, and this is sort of the last touch point of like all of the different institutions of the game that we have. So our gather rounds and our international rules and our state of origin. I guess the first touch point is like gather round. There's been this conversation around like, okay, where's the women's gather round? Where should it be? Why are we not involved? Why is it not showcased? I guess what's your view around gather round or opening round? I think there's a conversation around that, and like, okay, how do we fundamentally steal eyeballs from the NRL?
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess what do you think about gather round as it's presented at the moment? I guess, are there any opportunities in that you think could happen?
Yeah, I think we, like, just as teammates chatting, I think we would all love to have something like gather round in the women's space, because it probably just like gives more opportunity for, whether it would be like in Adelaide or whether it would be Western Australian or whether they'd bring it to Sydney. Like, I think it would just give an opportunity for people to get to more games and sort of see different game styles that they probably wouldn't see otherwise. And like, even, I mean, I personally would love for us to be able to have a showcase game or something similar in the men's gather round. So it might be like a perfect opportunity to play something like a State of Origin, where you just have so many footy fans in one spot. At the end of the day, I think ideally I would love for our season to align with the men's, and then we could look at having a joint gather round. And obviously the double headers happening this year is like a step in that direction. But yeah, I think gather round would just be such a celebration of football, and whether we would look at doing a gather round in Melbourne around like the grand final could be pretty cool. Like, could you imagine playing at Punt Road? Like, even if you had to play at like 11 a.m, but you get all these spectators walking past as they go towards the MCG. And obviously there's issues with like broadcast rights and that sort of stuff. But wouldn't that be cool to just have like turn the grand final for the men's into like a weekend full of footy for the women's league as well? Like Thursday night, Friday, even if you don't play Saturday, you still got games on Sunday. I think there's plenty of opportunities to build our presence in the space, and to do that is probably making sure that the men's league supporters can get a sense of where the W League is going and how good and exciting our games can be.
So I guess you'd be in favour of, I know there's split views on this, of the double headers that are sort of, they've said are going to come through this year. I guess what's your view on the idea that it sort of negates the focus on the women's game versus, hey, people are there?
Yeah, I think it's hard because I can't really I can only speak on my opinion, and I can't speak for like years gone by where it was just about trying to build crowds and build the presence of AFLW. But I think now we just sort of realise that to build our supporter base, we have to build the support from the men's, like say for the Giants, like we need to bring the men's supporters across to the W game. But to do that, you need them to see our games. You need to be able to see how exciting our games can be. So I love the thought of the double headers. I also love the thought of being able to build the like team connection and the team culture across both the men's and the women's programs. Like nothing's better than when you're playing country footy and you get to travel away and do a road trip together. So like to have that in a professional space would be so exciting. I really hope that the Giants get blessed with one of these double-header games because I think it would be really cool, and it would be really exciting for us to, even if you catch, 5,000 people who come early to watch the men's game, then that's a decent amount that would be able to see our game.
Is that a common view, among the playing group?
I can only really speak for from my team, but I do think that that's pretty common. I think there are people who still have the view that we should be standalone and we should continue to be standalone. But the thing with AFL is that the men's league goes for so long. Like they've got 24 rounds plus a couple weeks of finals, and we can't keep pushing our season. We want to grow to play every team at least once, and we can't keep squishing that in towards the end of their season or squishing it in over summer. So eventually we're going to have to expand out to be within the same time period that the men's team's in. And I think to be able to do curtain raisers or double headers or whatever you want to call it, I think it would be really cool.
Probably makes standalone crowds a little easier when they're not at 4 o'clock on a Tuesday.
Exactly.
Which is what Tony Jones would call a comment. On Q&A. I guess the other one, like if we're, ticking off the boxes of the institutions, is international rules is obviously, as we understand, will be coming back later this year. Is there anything you've heard? Firstly, is there anything you've heard vis-a-vis international rules?
No, so we've been pretty quiet on our end. We've heard from the PA.
Irish front.
Yeah, we've heard from the PA that they're supporting it and that it looks like it'll be happening. But yeah, I think we're just waiting to hear who gets picked, what teams are going to look like. Is that something
I think most listeners, I put this in our notes, so I guess you're aware if you weren't already aware. That, and I didn't realise this until I sort of was researching this, that there was an international rules series. There's already been a women's international rules series in 2006, and it's I didn't realize it is. I can't find footage of it for love nor money, but Australia got absolutely flogged because they weren't allowed to tackle.
Yes.
Daisy Pearce is playing, Milana Hope's playing, Cora Staunton's playing.
Yes.
They get absolutely flogged in the first test. They go to, I think, Dublin or Belfast in the second test. They're getting flogged again. And someone does the numbers and does a head count and realises that Ireland have one too many on. Oh. And so they run the head count. There's photos of this head count in the second test.
Oh, no.
And I think it's still a rule in a lot of leagues where if you do the head count and you end up with one too many on, then you wipe the score. Your team score gets wiped to that point.
Oh.
Sometimes it's like an automatic forfeit. Sometimes but there's definitely leagues and there's definitely a point in time where the law was the score just gets wiped to that point. So they get wiped and they still come back and win.
Yeah.
Like they're late in the second half, they still come back and win. So I guess is that something I know you crossed over like very briefly with Cora Staunton. Is that something you've discussed international rules or something you've wanted to do?
Yeah, I can't say.
And I'm making assumptions about the surname McCormick, but I assume there's some Irish in there somewhere.
If you go far back enough, then probably. But I can't say Cora wasn't really a big chatter, so I can't say that she ever flagged that she did play in it. But I think, like, I genuinely didn't think until there was sort of whispers about probably like towards the end of last year, mid last year, that it could come back for the women's league. Like, I genuinely didn't think that could ever be an opportunity, and you know, it'll be interesting to see how they pick the team and whether it is the All-Australian like team or squad of last year that gets selected. But it would be pretty cool. I think it'll be quite...
Have you played Gaelic football before?
Well, I think this will probably be quite different. The way that I'm reading it is it'll probably be the Irish AFLW players and then the Australian AFLW players, and we're going to play Aussie rules. Like, it's not going to be Gaelic necessarily, which is very different to what like the international rules previously has been. So
I think I might riot if that's the case, possibly.
Pardon?
I think I might riot if I don't get like round ball Gaelic goals.
Like the goals, yeah. It'll be interesting. I think
I want to junket.
Yeah.
Everyone else in this godforsaken industry gets the junket to Adelaide. I want to junket to Ireland. Yeah. That's what I want.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting because I know the GAA is involved in some instance, but to be fair, like, we haven't had much information yet. But whatever it is, I think it'll be really interesting because it's just changed a lot since then. Like, I imagine 2006, we're looking at, like, from a W standpoint or a women's team standpoint, that it would just have been a very different space.
Is there something you are yearning for, innovation-wise? Is this something where if you had a silver bullet, if you had, you know, you're Andrew Dillon for a day and, you know, unencumbered by whatever... No, I was gonna make a joke. I'm not going to. I'm not going to. It's all good. I value my career. And anyway, all good. But you know, unencumbered by whatever commercial imperatives. That's all we'll say. Commercial imperatives. There might be. Is there an innovation you would introduce tomorrow? Australia?
I don't think it's an innovation, but wouldn't it be nice just for everyone to play each other once? Like, it's still pretty absurd that you only get to play 12 rounds. We don't even get to play every team. And every time I tell someone who's not involved in AFL, or like maybe follows AFL but doesn't follow AFLW super closely, and then I tell them, like, we only get 12 rounds, we don't get to play every team once. Like, their minds are blown because they just say, how is that a fair league? And I think, it's probably not crazy to just think that maybe we should play every team once. That's personally the main thing I would change.
The other one actually that comes to my mind is, and I know there's split views on this, but my understanding is the playing group are pretty unanimous on this, is moving to size 5s. Is that something that you care
size
about?
5 footies?
Yeah.
I personally quite like the small footies.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier to kick, but it's pretty funny when I go away and, like, say, for instance, when I was out west and I trained with Tamworth and I trained with the men's team, kicking a size 5 footy, it's fine because I have pretty massive hands, but then I can imagine my teammates would really struggle. But
yeah, really?
Yeah, I think the issue though with AFLW, not the issue, but one of the things about our game that's quite different to the men's is that it's more contested, so that's why we drop 2 players off the field. But something that really contributes to that is the distance that women's players can kick at the moment. And if we were to change the size of the football, then you're only going to make it more contested and potentially make it less exciting to watch.
Well, this is the argument, is that the heavier footy, in theory, like I don't know how this would go in practice, but the argument that I've heard from like a not insignificant, and I know this is a sort of a passion point for one Kate McCarthy, but like the bigger footy, because it's heavier, travels, like it doesn't get held up in the wind.
Interesting.
But then I guess like the alternate solution to that is like to not play AFLW games in paddocks.
Yes,
that are sort of exposed to the wind.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm no sports scientist, so I wouldn't know if a bigger footy, but personally from my own experience, I feel like I can kick a size 4 a lot further than I can kick a size 5.
I think because I coach our women's team, and so I'm kicking size 4s more than I'm size 5s these days. And I don't have a massive leg in the first instance, but I think it's easier for me to kick a size 4, and I feel awesome. Kicking a size 4 a lot further than I ever kicked a size 5.
It's like when you kick an Oz kick football and it just like flies through the air and then all the kids are like, wow, that's amazing. And you're like, exactly. I know.
My God, it's Superwoman. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, no, I think there's bigger, you know, personally, I don't think I'm too concerned about the ball size. I'm more concerned about the games we get to play. And this year you probably heard that we get to play, there's the option for clubs to opt in to playing either 5 or 6 practice matches. I think you have to play at least 4, maybe 5. And it's like, awesome, thank you so much for giving us more games, but you're giving us games that are practice matches instead, where in general I think everyone would just prefer to play 18 games against each other, count towards the ladder position, get a real good understanding of where you sit within the league. Because obviously year on year it changes so much with the player movement and trades, like and drafting. It'd be just so much better to just be able to play every team once.
No, absolutely. I think we've covered a lot of policy, which is good. This is more policy based than I thought it was going to be, but this is good. Cambridge McCormick, thank you so much for coming up to See Pressure.
Thank you so much.